New in 8.1 as well is where you can assign your password policy to and how they get evaluated. As you know, typically, for example, if you define a password policy for the person object, that means the identity, this is connected to the person table. That means you can assign that policy to the person table and that's it. Since 8.1, it is as well possible to assign password policies for person objects to business rules, departments, locations and cost center. And the good message is, it is not only possible to assign them to these organizations, it is as well possible to assign it to all of these organizations, and depending on where they are assigned, they get evaluated or used. What that means is that in the order you can see on the screen, that means business role, department, location, cost center and person object. In this order, for a password policy will be searched, and if the first password policy is at the end located, this policy is taken. That means if you assign one to the business role and one to the person table, the business role policy will be used. If the business policy is not available, then the person policy will be used. At the end, with that, we allow much more granular to assign these password policies. The same thing, by the way, happens as well, and this is number 2 of the story, for the account password policies. You can define, as we all know, account password policies for Active Directory, SAP, LDAP, whatever else account. And there it is now possible to assign them in difference to before, where it was only allowed to assign that policy to a container or to a domain, that means to the root object of that target system. Now as well to account definitions and manage level. And with that, you can define password policies per manage level, which means at the end, an admin account gets another password policy active than, for example, a user account. How cool is that? And on these manage levels are then 3 different password policies. And depending on which account gets created of that specific type, the right policy gets taken. Again, a feature for more future customers, but on the other hand side, it makes the whole thing much more flexible than before. One of the main interesting features as well is that the password handling itself, that means how passwords was used in the Identity Manager, was driven by templates up to version 8 of the Identity Manager. This was causing mainly one big problem, and this main problem was that every password handled by templates cannot handle encrypted stuff. And the reason for that is, remember, in Identity Manager, if there's a database encrypted, the only one who is able to decrypt data, it's the service. And because of that, in 8.1, the Identity Manager was moving all password handling and password setting options directly to processes. Processes allowed to be executed from a server service, and this server service is as well able to decrypt stuff, so that on the one hand side, passwords can be decrypted to set them into target systems, and on the other hand side, they can as well be set, for example, into the historization. An additional thing is that because we are moving from templates to processes, this is a breaking change for all of these people who was just modifying their specific templates. That means their password handling templates. And if you in your project did something like that, it is necessary to take now this functionality and to move that into these processes which was generated to do this specific job. The templates in the system should be the standard templates, especially in case of the password handling, so that not 2 different options just start to fight with each other. As you know as well, we are just historizing all of these passwords, and historizing passwords means as well that they get stored then somewhere in a history database. And this was possible for any account passwords in the past, but not for the central password that was not stored in the history. This is now fixed in 8.1. Now the central password gets stored as well. Another feature, as you remember, is that in the Identity Manager on the Person Object, on the Miscellaneous tab, there are two different passwords to set. One is known as the central password, the other one it's known as the dialog user passwords. Typically they are independent, that means the one is disconnected from the other. With the central password, as you know, you reset account passwords. With the dialog user password, you set, for example, the password for Person Object to sign in on a person basis. However, it is now possible to let the one depend on the other. That means you can at the end let the dialog password depend on the central user password, which means that the dialog user password gets resetted together with all the other account passwords on a password reset. Therefore exists a configuration parameter, and again, because this is completely changing the behavior, it is a breaking change, and you have to ensure that your customization you did there gets not infected or just damaged by the new behavior of the product.